So this last episode of From is getting a lot of hate, and it honestly caught me by surprise, as I thought this episode was really good. People on Reddit have been trashing this episode, and even Forbes made an article calling it the worst episode of the season. And I don't really get that. And I just think a lot of the hate has been misplaced on this episode, when it really should have been placed towards some of the previous episodes that didn't really progress the story and had some pretty poor pacing. This episode, I honestly thought the pacing was fine. Maybe the scene with Donna and Victor's dad was, I thought it was good, but I admit it probably made the episode run a bit slower than it should have. But I still thought it was a good scene. And then there were some characters being stupid, but it's not like they were acting out of character or anything either. This was a Fatima and Ellis heavy episode, and a lot of people didn't like that. But personally, I thought it was a good episode because it progressed their arc, unlike some of the previous episodes. And again, I just think some of this anger should be directed at some of the previous episodes where it just showed Fatima eating rotten food over and over again. Or how in previous episodes there was just repetitive scenes of the kimono lady asking Elgin for help and nothing else. I like that this episode basically just confirmed that Fatima's pregnancy is going wrong, and this is also where she gets concrete proof that it's going wrong. And she is really upset with that, understandably. And as people like Donna start to figure this out, they're like, oh, I don't really think you should stay in Colony House, which is also understandable, as there was that one dude at the end of season 1 that let a monster in and got a bunch of people killed. So I understand Donna's concern about the people of Colony House after that situation happened. And honestly, I think the opening hospital scene was really good, and the only issue I had really was just the goofy moment where Alice is like, oh, Fatima, you shouldn't go outside, it's raining. And it's like, really? Really, dude?
How about you stay the night? Ellis can stay too.
I want to go home.
Fatima.
Hey,
I just want to go Fatima.
it's raining outside, okay? I don't want you walking all
Worried
the way.
about the fucking rain?
Okay,
And I like the scene of Tilly comforting Alice about Fatima's pregnancy, and I like that we get to learn more background on Tilly, and how her cancer diagnosis caused her to be really scared at first, but eventually she just came to terms with the fact that she was going to die. And I don't know, I don't really understand why everyone seems to think that Tilly is going to be some evil person or monster or something. Like, really, the only suspicious thing to me has been how she's been in, like, the scenes with Fatima and Elgin, like, all the time. But other than that, I mean, people were like, oh my god, she's dancing in the rain, that's so creepy and weird, and it's like, I haven't really gotten many bad vibes from her. And then even in the scene where Fatima's eating rotten food, she seemed really confused and concerned, so... I mean, I guess I can get proven wrong, but I couldn't really get behind the idea that she was going to be an evil character or something. And I actually like the scene with Fatima and her stomach going crazy, as it's another sign of clear progression with her arc. As before, it was just her eating rotten food, but now it's actually progressed to something worse. And people were like, oh my god, nothing happened in this episode, nothing happened in this episode. And I don't know, to me, that was pretty clear progression of her arc and her story. And I'm willing to bet that either episode 8 or 9, we're gonna see what's happening with her. And to be fair, I don't really care about Fatima's character this season. Again, I think that her arc has been really slow overall. But again, this episode, it ramped things up. So, again, I just don't see why people are saying, oh my god, nothing happened when things happened. And Fatima's arc in this episode continued even more when she ended up stabbing Tilly when Tilly was just trying to comfort Fatima. And I feel like this was the moment where we were gonna see if Tilly was some evil being or not. And she just ends up dying, so... I mean, unless she just miraculously gets brought back from the dead, I think this was pretty much confirmation that Tilly was just a red herring. And I was confused that Tilly's last words to Fatima at first to run. But thinking about it, it totally makes sense, because she was just telling Fatima to run so that she wouldn't get caught for murdering her. And she's a better person than I am, because in that situation, if someone stabbed me when I was trying to comfort them, I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Fuck you. And with all that being said, I still think that Tilly deserved to be stabbed just for the way that she pronounced Fatima's name.
How's Fatima doing?
Fatima? Oh, Fatima.
Like, that honestly, like, really irked me. And I do wonder how everyone's gonna react to Fatima killing Tilly. Although I do fear that the next episode is just gonna be a whole entire episode of Alice covering it up. But if it's at least revealed that Fatima's the one that killed Tilly, like, halfway through the episode or at the end of the episode, I might be able to live with it. And then moving on to Boyd, I think his interaction with Christy and him getting all pissed at her and expecting her to just solve everything was... I mean, it was... I guess it's been in character for how he's been lately. But at the same time, it's like, dude, what the fuck do you expect Christy to do here? And it's like, yeah, I understand that you've gone through a lot in these last couple episodes, but you really don't need to take your anger out on her. And then, as I already discussed earlier, we learned from Boyd's conversation with Donna that Donna does not want Fatima and Ellis at her colony house anymore. Which, again, is totally understandable. And really the only maybe minor flaw of this is that she also probably should have been like, she should just stay at the hospital area with Christy instead. But I'm not really going to hold it against the episode, as I feel like that's just kind of nitpicking at this point. And then the cop Acosta has kind of just done a 180 for me, as originally I honestly felt kind of bad for how the town was treating her. And it was like a I understood both sides kind of a thing, where she was shitty and abandoned people to die, and then got someone killed because she was panicked. But then at the same time, they tie people up on the first day that they're there for a reason. So I kind of understood both sides. But in this episode, she's acting all frantic about getting her gun back when she literally just murdered someone.
The fuck are you doing?
You took my gun, I want it back.
You... Get out.
And that kind of pissed me off. But again, I'm not holding that against the show like a lot of other people are, because I think her character is being like shown here that she's just someone that like is obsessed with being in control, and that she's gonna be butting heads with Boyd in the future. I mean, that already happened in this episode, but it's probably gonna happen even more. And I don't know, maybe she's just totally used to going around and murdering people and not having any consequences for it. But I think it was totally reasonable that they took her gun away after she murdered someone. And I loved how it ended with Boyd just giving her gun back, but without the ammo. And then he was just like, yeah, you're gonna get the ammo back when I feel like you've earned it. And it was like, yeah, if you come through my office and like search through all my shit again, we're gonna have an issue. And the only thing is that he did kind of just reveal his hiding spot, so he's gonna have to find another one for the ammo. I don't have an issue with that or anything, but that's just something that I noticed. And I do wonder if the cop is gonna end up like stealing the ammo from Boyd anyways, and then she's gonna be the one that kills Fatima when she becomes dangerous. But to be honest, I still think I'd prefer like Ellis having to kill Fatima, as a similar parallel to how Boyd had to kill his own wife to protect his son. But I guess with that, we'll just have to wait and see. And then earlier on in the episode, Jim was being dismissive of Tabitha, who was investigating the stones from her nightmares as a kid. And he was comparing it to how he was thinking that the place was a simulation, and that Randall ended up kidnapping Donna, but I don't really think the situations are comparable, as it's not like Tabitha was going out there and looking for trouble. And I feel like unless they're going to make Jim like a better character, or if they're going to like make them split up soon, I just don't think we need to see that much more of Jim in the show. Like, he just needs to become more of a background character at this point. And I also think the progression of this is a little bit slow, since in this entire episode, the only scene we really got was Tabitha going up to the stones, and we didn't really learn anything from it yet. But with all the other story progression we had in this episode, I was honestly fine with it. And not much else really happens in the scene, other than just one of those cannon fodder characters mentioning how they heard footsteps at night again, which was just them hinting that that monster's still around. And I do think that that was actually something that's been handled well, as long as something actually comes out of it. As it's not like we've just been getting, like, scenes every single episode of us hearing footsteps outside the cabin at night. Instead, after it happened, we just get a scene a couple episodes later of someone mentioning that they heard footsteps outside the cabin. So, that, I feel like, is how you do it, as opposed to, like, almost every episode just getting, like, scenes of Fatima eating rotten food, or the kimono lady telling Elgin that she needs help. And I do like how the show's continuing to make Randall a more likable character. I do feel like Julie's being, like, mildly weird, and it feels like she's trying to come on to Randall. And it's like, you're, like, 16 or 17, and the dude's approaching 30, so it's just kind of weird. And I hope nothing comes out of this. I was a little bit annoyed with the fact that after Randall saw the cicadas, he just ran off. And it was kind of just clearly a way that the show could, like, push them in the direction of finding the gateway to where they were held by the music box monster. So that was, like, a slight flaw I had with the episode, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. And Randall, rightfully so, was like, yeah, let's not look into this more. But I'm curious where the show's going to go with it, since I'm pretty sure that they're going to go back to it later. And I'm just interested to see what significance this place is going to have. And then lastly, that stretched out storyline of the kimono lady and Elgin continues. But this time the story does progress a bit with this, so again, I'm not really seeing the whole nothing happened this episode. As she leads him to a basement where Elgin discovers this old, like, rotted corpse. Which some people online are saying it's Tilly, but I don't think so, as the corpse literally has a beard. But I do wonder what the significance of it is. And I don't know, I hope we find out within the next episode. To be honest, the only guess I have right now is Christopher. Which, if anyone else has, like, another guess as to who that might be sure to let me know in the comments, because other than that, I honestly have no idea. So there's another couple things I want to address in a minute, but I want to get to how I felt about this episode overall. And to be honest, don't see the hate at all. I think there was a lot that progressed in this episode, and I don't know if, like, the people complaining wants the same episode or not, or if maybe some of that TikTok brain rot has gotten to them. But this was a good episode. There were some minor issues I had overall with how some of the scenes were kind of just fluff, with like Kenny and the bus driver, or Randall just running off into the woods as a way for the show to move us to the gateway area. But overall, I thought there was a lot more good with this episode than the bad. And again, a lot more story progression happened in this episode than the previous episode. And overall, I thought it was a really good episode. I would give it a 9 out of 10. Forbes, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You can suck my fucking dick, honestly, because this was not a bad episode. And overall, I just thought this was a really good episode that people are shitting on just because some of the previous episodes were slower. And that there's just a lot of misplaced frustration with this episode. I've seen a lot of people online talking about, oh, when is Boyd gonna catch a monster? And it's like, had you been watching the episode, you would see that he had been talking to the imaginary Father Khatri, and he had told him that he was not building a trap for the monster, and that he was just making a memory board. Now, we still haven't seen the consequences of Jade knocking over the totem, but someone did mention how they heard some creepy footsteps walking around, so I don't think the show's forgotten about it. But I do want to know if they're ever going to mention that motel that Henry said was missing, as I kind of hope that it's not something they just mention once and then just drop it. I don't think that every part of this mystery needs to be solved. I think it's okay if some things are just, you don't know, and you're just left up to your imagination. But I do think there's a lot of major things that need to be solved with this show. And then there was a post on Reddit I saw with a lot of people liking it that I kind of think it just proves a lot of people who watch this show lack any sort of critical thinking. As there was a scene early in the first season where a monster was like, Julie, don't you recognize me? And then some person on Reddit was like, this never gets touched up on again. I get why a lot of viewers are getting frustrated. And the show makes it obvious that they're doing this to trick people, so why people are still stuck on this, it's just baffling to me. Like, what? But overall, I think this episode is really good, and I think a lot of this hate was being misdirected towards this episode, when in reality, it should have been the previous episodes getting some of this anger and frustration. But do you guys agree with me, though? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to leave a like if you made it this far, and also be sure to subscribe, as I do intend on continuing to make videos like this for the rest of Season 3 of From, and any other future seasons of From. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.